underfoot over bridge of New Delhi railway station and making sales. Viewers, the three new laws, they're comprised of the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, Bharatiya Nagarik Suraksha Sanhita and the Bharatiya Sakshya Adhiniyam will take the place of the Indian Penal Code, the Code of Criminal Procedure and the Indian Evidence Act respectively. These new laws aim to modernize the justice system with provisions such as zero FIR, online police complaint registration, electronic, in fact, their summonses and mandatory videography of crime scenes for serious offences. The changes address contemporary social issues and crimes reflecting the ideals of the Constitution. Under Home Minister Amit Shah, who introduced the laws, emphasized that they prioritize justice over penal action, unlike the colonial laws. He stated that the laws created by Indians for Indians represent a complete overhaul of the previous system, embodying Indian values and principles. Modern justice system with zero FIR, there are now online police complaints registration, precedents for crimes against women, children and the state. FIRs post 1st of July registered under new section 173, Delhi Police's e-Praman app for recording evidence, mandatory crime scene videography for heinous crimes, new chapter on crimes against women and children, electronic summons via SMS, community service for petty offences, clear definition of terrorism, abolition of sedition as a crime, stringent offences against the state section, and offences there include acts of secession and armed rebellion. Judgments within 45 days post-trial, charges framed within 60 days of first hearing. New laws apply to crimes by Indian citizens abroad. Now, meanwhile, Congress MP Manish Tiwari has given an adjournment motion notice in the Lok Sabha for the purpose of discussing the three new laws, the criminal laws that came into effect from today till 1st of July 2024. Let's go across to my colleague Ashok Bagaria, who joins us on more on this. I'm also joined by Kapil Sankla, who is Advocate Supreme Court. I'll come to you, Ashok. Explain in simple terms what changes for you and me and for the ordinary citizen.
So, good morning, Neha. So, first thing that happens is that the IPC, CRPC and the Indian Evidence Act have now been replaced by three new criminal laws. So on the ground, what happens is, the first thing that happens is that FIRs under the Indian Penal Code will no longer be registered. That is, starting midnight, July 1st, only offences against under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita will be registered. The procedure code, which is the criminal procedure code, has also been replaced by a new procedure code, which says that the criminal procedure code is done away with, and the new process which has been set in the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, or rather the new procedure code, will be applicable. Evidence will also be taken under the new Bharatiya Suraksha Adhiniyam will be recorded, where emphasis is given on recording of statements and taking evidence based on electronic statements. So WhatsApp chats, messages, recordings will now be considered as primary evidence. There is a focus, or rather stress, which is given on the use of technology and forensics for investigation of cases as well as taking evidence by the courts. So this is the overview. We have to keep in mind when we discuss these new criminal laws is the fact that the Indian Penal Code was enacted in 1832 but only adopted in 1860. Thereafter, the Indian Evidence Act was adopted in 1872, and there was a criminal procedure code in place in the British era, but was modified in 1973. So now these basically the last vestiges of British era laws have been done away with, the reason or the objective for doing away with these laws is primarily that these criminal laws have been in place for the last 160 years. They have not been relooked at, and the government felt that it was time to bring these laws, criminal laws, in tune with times. The second reason was also that there had been a lot of feedback to the government where it was suggested that the criminal process takes a long time. The investigating techniques adopted by the police are also not in tune with times, and therefore all of this needs to change. So keeping all these factors in mind, the government of India took an initiative in 2019 where consultation process was undertaken by the with the Chief Justice of India, Chief Justices of High Courts, Chief Ministers of States, and even the Member of Parliaments, MPs, was undertaken. And finally, these three criminal laws were introduced and passed last year in December 2023. When these laws were passed and received presidential assent, it was decided by the government that they will be kept into abeyance for a period of 7 months, because that would be the time when the police officers, the judicial officers will be given training to keep or investigate cases and try cases under the new criminal laws. So this is how it plays out, Neha. And what really happens, I just want to point out one more thing quickly, is that what happens to old offences which were registered under the Indian Penal Code. Now those offences will be untouched and they will be tried as per the Indian Penal Code. The CRPC and the old Indian Evidence Act will apply to those offences.
Right.
But starting from today, offences will be registered under the new criminal laws and they will be tried according to the new criminal laws.
Right. Mr. Kapil Sankhla, I'll come to you. You know, the question also is, wasn't it overdue to update these laws which have been in place since the British era?
Oh, absolutely right. In fact, you see, just to add on to what my colleague has said, these acts were 163 odd years old. There have been immense amount of amendments that have taken place. There have been judicial precedents that have set an interpretation to various sections in various acts. You know that technology has advanced. We're talking about WhatsApp messages. We're talking about electronic evidences. We're talking about the concept of what is a document has changed and all of that. So all of that has been interpreted by the Honorable Supreme Court and by various high courts over the years. So all of that needed to be consolidated, and this act in fact consolidates it. There's also a very interesting thing which I read, that in fact the Indian Penal Code, as was initiated by the Britishers and of course went through various amendments, was created to punish the offenders, because there were different acts for different Indians and non-Indians. So the Indian Penal Code was created to punish Indians. Well, and this particular act, when you're talking about the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, as the name suggests, the intention is to impart justice and not to punish people. And that's actually a huge shift. And therefore, as I look at it as a criminal lawyer, the idea is to find the guilty and not to find the accused. And that itself is a huge change. And this change is also imperative and also important because, again, technology has changed. Technology has improved. We're talking about, DNA mapping, mind mapping, and things like those. So one is that we give away and do away with the outdated colonial era laws. The second is that this particular act or these three acts also take into account the victim and the rights of the victim. So three important things. One, it prioritizes victim protection. Secondly, it provides better safeguards as far as victim compensation is concerned, and also protection from, intimidation and harassment. But thirdly, very importantly, it keeps the victim in the loop as to what is happening in the case. So within 90 days, a victim will be informed as to what is the status of his case, etc., etc. That is extremely important. Also, in the same light, as my colleague said, the registration of FIR has been completely overhauled. So as a victim, you don't have to actually run around the police officers to get an FIR registered. One, there is a concept of zero FIR. which was brought in by a judicial intervention many years back, which stated that any police thana will be duty bound to register an FIR. They cannot say that, oh, we cannot because we don't have the jurisdiction. So that as far as territorial jurisdiction is concerned, that has been given away with. The second is registration of digital FIR. Then you can actually register FIR in various offenses digitally, and then of course you have to go and sign it because you're also afraid that somebody could probably masquerade. Also, senior citizen, women, people with disabilities will also not have to go to the thana. The registration will be done of the FIR in their own house. So those are again huge changes. The other aspect is streamlining investigation and trial process, which is also extremely important because in this particular matter, what happens is the unnecessary delays have been taken away. So now every stakeholder has been made accountable, not only lawyers, because now there is only limited adjournments that can be taken. And I'm very happy to say that because usually the defense lawyers bear the brunt of this. As a lawyer who's extensively done matters against CBI, what I see is that the CBI public prosecutors are given a lot of leeway, the accused lawyers are not. So that accountability is there. The accountability is also there on the judiciary, as the judges also cannot give, adjournments after adjournments for one ground or the other. So that's also very important. Also, what is important is that this act also takes into view the rights of ladies, women, when it comes to stalking, voyeurism, sexual harassment, protects child protection, punishment for child abuse, introduces gender neutral laws. However, I do think that rape should also be made gender neutral, introduces cybercrime, identity theft. So all of those amendments that have brought in the new act which has come, are actually, for my best understanding, are from various international conventions, best practices, UN conventions against transnational organized crime, etc., etc. And we do know that there are a lot of these specialized acts which have come in, right? So you have these acts which actually deal with PMLA, prevention of money laundering, advanced level of serious fraud by companies, serious fraud by directors, etc. So all of those sections, all of those specialized acts have also necessitated that IPC had to go through a complete overhaul. So therefore, the new IPC, the new CRPC, the new Evidence Act brings into effect not only what is on the ground important now, but also takes into account the various amendments, the various modifications, as well as the various interpretations of various courts that have been passed to understand the laws. So in my view, it's a great step forward. Let us see.
Right. Mr. Sangla, continue to stay with us. Ashok, I'll come to you. The question also is about the objections. Do go on and tell us what are some of the objections raised by the people, and most importantly, how has the government addressed them?
Well, now there are some problem areas, or rather I would say teething problems with the three new criminal laws. So the first thing is that there is a petition which has been filed in the Supreme Court of India, which seeks that there should be an expert panel which should be constituted and will relook at the three laws. Now the biggest problem that has been pointed out, or has been pointed out by the critics of these three criminal laws, is that when these particular bills were passed by the Parliament, there was no adequate consultation, because it is being said that at the time when these three bills were taken up for discussion in the Parliament, at least 142 members of Parliament were suspended by the Lok Sabha Speaker. So the opposition claims that there was no adequate consultation process which was done while passing these bills. So in a democracy, consultation, debate and discussion are the bloodline of democracy. Without adequate consultation and discussion, if a law is passed, it is considered to be a bad law. The second thing is with respect to certain provisions under the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Now, there is a problem with respect to offense of rash and negligent driving. Now, there has been a huge problem with that section, because a large section of transporters within the country say that this provision, which rather plants liability on the owner of the vehicles in case there is a hit and run case and it is not reported to the police. The liability will be imposed on the owner of the vehicle. So that is one problem area. The other thing is that there is again a lot of confusion with respect to defining and illustrations of the provisions which have been incorporated in the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita. Another problem area which has been pointed out is with respect to the new Evidence Act or Sakshya Adhiniyam, where they have said that there is no proper definition of what is a primary document, what is a digital record, how it will be done, and things like that. So there are some problems with these laws, and also there is another provision which has been a matter of huge concern for civil rights activists, is that the new criminal laws reintroduce the handcuffing of the accused or the people who are alleged to have committed the crime. In fact, some 25 years back, the Supreme Court had in its judgment said that handcuffing of accused is against the human rights of the accused, and this practice should be abolished. Now, there is a reintroduction of this practice in the new criminal laws. So on these counts, these new criminal laws have been criticized, but barring that, what is important to keep in mind is that these three criminal laws, new criminal laws, have basically streamlined the laws, which was the crying need of the hour.
Right. Ashok, continue to stay with us. Mr. Sankla, very briefly, if you could answer this, I wanted to kind of address this also and ask you this. This is a very important question. Another significant concern arising from the implementation of the criminal laws is the omission of addressing rape cases involving male victims, which completely overlooks the controversial section 377 of the IPC.
You're absolutely right. I think that's what I said, that as in favor I am of the new acts. When the acts were being discussed and we were all a part of the discussion, I had put it across that I think it is time to make rape gender neutral as well. And so when you're talking about something like marital rape as well, I said that if we want to introduce this, make this gender neutral. I mean, there was a lot of hullabaloo about why men are supposed to be powerful physically and all of that. But you tend to forget that in today's time, a woman can also be raped by a woman, or a man can also be raped by a man. And in certain cases, the man could also be raped by a woman. So, I mean, why would you want to stick to the old concept of when a man rapes a woman? I think it is time to look at that. And I do wish that the government does look at it and amends the act in a way to make it gender neutral, because that is also the need of the hour. Once you actually remove the criminality from certain sections, you also have to understand its repercussions. So as on that, I am completely with you. But on the other sections and the other objections to it, I really don't think those objections merit an answer, because fortunately, most of those objections are something that had been dealt by the Honorable Supreme Court in the previous acts and had stated that this is the need of the hour, please amend it. And I think those amendments that have been brought in have been right, are correct, and in the right path as far as the laws are concerned. So apart from the rape issue of rape, I think the other sections which have been brought in are bang on and in tandem with the international laws as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sankla, for joining us on this special broadcast. Thank you very much, Ashok, for being with me here in the studios. Well, on that note, we wrap this special edition of the Bulletin. Thank you very much for watching. News and updates continue on the other side. Do stay with us.
The confidence is certainly back in the market.
Do tighten your seat belt so that you can withstand volatility.
I have one humble request to all the viewers of News9 is that please don't go, there will be a lot of choppiness, there will be a lot of volatility. Look at long term, don't look at short term. Buy quality, don't buy quantity, and wish you all the very best.
हमारा टाइम आ गया है और रहेगा।
This and more. Streaming on News9 plus news is now content. Subscribe and get free vouchers.